I wanted to talk a little bit about dream work and dream poetry. I'm working through a particularly difficult and part of a dream that I had recently that after just, I write down as much as I can as it happened, and sometimes it makes no sense at the time. But what we remember, what we bring back, sometimes certain things we focus on because we can't figure it out. And then with dream poetry, it helps us revisit the dream, maybe focus on that one part. If we zoom in on a certain part of the dream, perhaps, and then pay attention to it a little bit more as we're revisiting. So all of these forms of revisiting a dream, whether it's dream poetry or drawing it or creating a multimedia reflection about it or a play, and reenacting it, help bring out the elements and perhaps create some meaning for us in whatever we plan to do with this dream, whether it's art or maybe a business plan or however it might apply to our lives at that time, or just good conversation. And there's this one part of a dream that I'm working through that dealt with stubs. And the only thing at the time, after I'm writing down my dream record, that I could think of is like a pencil stub, right? And then later, stub your toe. So all of these things that just came to mind at first. What this part of the stub was referring to, I looked it up and something popped up on Wikipedia about coding or something like that. But I had to figure out what is a stub? Why they keep mentioning stubs with all these different subjects? A stub is an article deemed too short to provide encyclopedic coverage of a subject. And so I'm just laughing. I'm like, I've created so much content trying to figure out this dream and then also how to bring it into a poem that I've created a book, like an encyclopedia. And then this one word, stub, has created so much content in and of itself. Artists understand this, writers understand this, how much work it takes to just write a single poem sometimes is incredible. Searching on the internet, and here pops up a calligraphy stub, which comes back to my art of calligraphy that I practice, and it's another word for nib, which I was not familiar with. I always use nib, I don't use stub, but it described in this, it showed in this YouTube video, and then I found another article about the difference between nibs. Then I went back, and the dream itself this part of the dream was an overview shot of, if you think of a railroad map, if you're looking at the overview of it, or a subway map, you see the different tracks or different lines. And so I remember one better than other, this one offshoot, and that part of the map was called a violin stub. There was another part called a bear stub, which I worked through this morning a little bit more. Initially, you're looking out for any kind of association that might fit your dream. My daughter in school had been working on spirit animals. Her class was working on Native American history, so they're working with spirit animals, and one of they had actually a quiz on what kind of spirit animal you would be, and they had a multiple choice kind of quiz, and based on how you responded as the spirit animal, then it gave a description of the meaning of the spirit animal, and under bear, one of the characteristics was stubbornness, so I was like, oh, it could be bear stub there. Then, just kind of working through my walk the other day, rewalking and reflecting on the dream, I found the writing tree. And this part of the tree, it was either a vine or a branch that broke off, and the stub of the vine was writing something in the dirt. And, you have this big, long arm or branch or vine that was bearing the weight of this arm, right? So I was like, oh, it could be the bear stub there. And then today I play violin, familiar with music, and so I didn't understand the combination of violin stub. So I'm looking up first violin, just maybe, trying to figure out exactly what that might be. And the description of a violin, I just went through and defined a violin. Okay, so here's a description, a definition of what a violin is. So, a musical instrument that has 4 strings and that you usually hold against your shoulder under your chin and play with a bow. A bowed-stringed instrument having 4 strings tuned at intervals of a fifth and usual range from G below middle C upward for more than 4.5 octaves and having a shallow body, shoulders at right angles to the neck, a fingerboard without frets, and a curved bridge. So all of these parts, I'm like, oh, okay. So we have reading music, which is also a form of lettering, which I hadn't thought of with my other part of the dream that I had been working through. And then I had to look up frets because I wasn't really familiar with that. And I found that although violins do not have frets, which are the raised kind of lines on a fingerboard, guitars do. So I pull up an image because I'm a very visual person of guitar, and I find 2 images. One image is the dots, the guide dots on the fingerboard that are also in between, like the frets, which are the raised things. And this image showed the string splitting the guide dot in half, which was very similar to what the symbol I had in my dream. So I was like, that's pretty cool. And then the second image that I saw was looking at a guitar from the fingerboard down into the body where the hole is. And I looked at it, and the shape of it was a keyhole. So I thought, interesting. And then that triggered musical key. So there's all of these layers that I am unraveling while I'm working through these dream elements and all of the different possibilities that there are for these words to bring it into this poem that I'm writing. So this one part of the dream that seemed to deal with a map that dealt with a railroad. If you think of the tracks that are laid in a railroad line, and also musical tracks have maybe something in common. And so the violin stub maybe wasn't so absurd. It was somehow connected. And also, by looking at this fingerboard for the guitar, I see also this interspersing of strings, which reminds you of the different parts of not only an instrument, but a sheet of music, and how notes are interspersed while you're reading the music, and how each of those symbols, those musical notes, correspond to a lettered note. If you're talking about G or C or A. So the other part of my dream may also have to deal with musical notes in some way. Just another symbol that can be embedded in this dream, which is the many layers of dreams it shows you.